All right, so we were talking about like the cloning and like maybe it's leading to like Darth play or Darth. We were talking about the cloning and maybe it was like the Emperor's coming back and it's gonna like all lead into that. That's what you think is ultimately the arc for the show?
I don't know if that's the ultimate arc of the show, but I think that they're trying to fill in some gaps for like where Snoke came from and how Palpatine came back. Because we all know that in the Rise of Skywalker that somehow the Emperor came back is very unsatisfying.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think if they're trying to retroactively make that movie better, I mean, more power to them, I guess. But I don't know if it's going to work or not. But uh, yeah, I would say that I would buy that Snoke was like a first attempt at recreating the Emperor, and it got all messed up. Trying to combine two sets of DNA together, and it just came out all weird looking like that.
yeah,
Because we get no information about what he is or where he's from or anything like that. So
yes.
it's a hole that could be filled, and I think it could work.
Yeah, I know that there's at least one novel that is about like Lando and Luke going after like Sith artifacts or something like that, and supposedly it like kind of fills in some gaps for the Rise of Skywalker and for the sequel trilogy in general. I really want to check out that book. I think it's called like Shadow of the Sith, but that's one of the beauties of Star Wars is like using sort of like the ancillary media to kind of patch up the problems of the main movies. And I'd be okay with Mandalorian doing that. I bet you $50 that it's going to be like a bigger arcing thing that's going to involve the Ahsoka show and whatever else they got going on.
Yeah, Dave Filoni has pretty much confirmed that there's going to be some kind of event. They haven't like flat out said it, but he said that something is coming here. I'm guessing that's going to be the Ahsoka show. I'm assuming that means the Jude Law Skeleton Crew show. And I don't know what else because the Acolyte is pre Old Republic, I believe,
So
right?
okay, so for the Old Republic, there's a time period called the High Republic when the Republic is doing really
Yeah.
well, and it's like thousands of years before A New Hope.
Well,
And
I think the Acolyte is supposed to be pre High Republic. I think.
no,
Could
no, it takes place at like the end of the High Republic.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Believe me, I kind of like the High Republic stuff. I just finished one of the High Republic books. I've read a couple of them. Me and Mike Bongiorno, either on this channel or my Anchor P channel, I've covered a couple of the books. It's a really cool time period too because it's sort of like the inverse, like the Jedi are badasses and are doing really well. And Charles Soule, comic book writer, has written a couple of the books. They're really good.
That's always good.
Yeah. But I talked to this one dude in a comic book store a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that he thinks that the event that you're sort of talking about is going to take place in like an area called like wild space or untamed space or some kind of shit like that. When that show Rebels ended, it ended with like Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra, the main character, going off into these weird regions of space, and he thinks that that's where the Star Wars is going to focus moving forward. Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, I haven't heard the specifics of it, but it makes sense. I mean, that seems to be what the Ahsoka show is going to be about.
Yeah,
Is her search for Ezra
yeah,
and then Thrawn.
yeah,
So it would be interesting if it was all. I mean, I feel like it needs to more tie into the Mandalorian because
yeah,
that seems to be the center of this little um, post Empire universe, mini universe here.
yeah.
So, and that seems like it's very rebel centric, and I don't exactly see how or why the Mandalorian fits into that, unless they're out there and they come back for some reason.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. I don't know. It's kind of a super exciting time, right? Because you're not relying on like any kind of Skywalker people at all, and it's not a big Jedi thing. It's just sort of like, well, what's happening here? And I like the idea of Grand Admiral Thrawn coming back. We talked about Moff Gideon a bit in this episode already. I think that Moff Gideon is probably going to end up being like a not a disciple, but like a a like a second in command to Thrawn or something like that.
Maybe. I definitely think it would be exciting to see Thrawn in live action though. So
Shit, yeah. So what else we got about this episode? Oh, okay. Here's one part that I really liked. I like the fact that he's going to have that mind flayer just scramble his brains, and there's this Mon Calamari scientist talking to him, and Dr. Pershing turns to him and he's like, "It was a trap," right? Did you notice that?
Yes.
I fucking love that. Oh man,
I laugh out of that.
yeah. But I felt bad for him too. And one other comment I want to make too is that they decide to go rogue, and so they take like a little flying subway car ride down to these lanes where they're basically taking apart Imperial ships, and it reminded me of like taking the subway in New York. Did it remind you of that too?
Yeah, but I don't think I've ever tried to evade fare or anything like that by running down a train.
Yeah, well, it's kind of archaic too, right? Because like when you go on the Staten Island train, someone used to check your ticket, but then in Staten Island they don't even check for tickets or anything.
Yeah,
Just
it's
take
all
the
free.
train
Yeah,
for free.
you only pay when you go on the ferry.
Yeah, yeah. And then in Manhattan, all you do is just swipe your Metro card. And I thought that's kind of what they did. They basically like jumped the turnstile.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then these robots came after them. And then they just ended up jumping off. But it's funny. They mentioned days of the week in this too.
Yeah, that was very interesting because, like you said, like I don't think I've ever heard a day of the week or any kind of. I mean, they definitely mention different kind of units of measurement and all that, but I don't think I've ever heard much about like days or months or anything like that. Or
right. And they mentioned like at least 2 days of the week. They were like Pong's days, right? So some kind of shit like that. Yeah, and
I guess it's Mondays.
Yeah, like I've read a shit ton of Star Wars books and comics, and I've watched a whole bunch of Star Wars shows, and I don't think anyone's ever mentioned a day of the week ever.
Yeah.
And then another thing,
but yeah, I've never seen anything either.
And then also besides that, they decide to go rogue, and one sign of when you go rogue in Star Wars is you have to pop your collar on your coat.
Nothing says.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. What was that?
Nothing says undercover shenanigans like a pop collar.
Yes. So, yeah. I mean, what do you think is going to happen next on the show?
Yeah, I don't know because I don't know how they're gonna pick up on that on Ella Kane's character moving forward and how it's even going to tie into what the Mandalorian's doing. Other than unless they're still chasing down Grogu for more of his blood or something like that. But I definitely think we're going to see some kind of hostile takeover of the Children of the Watch by Bo-Katan.
Yes. I'm all down for that. One thing I keep remembering is they show a scene of like Mandalorians jumping out of a ship with their jetpacks, and it looks like they're like attacking somewhere. I have no idea what that is going to be, but I keep waiting for that moment.
Yeah, and I was really excited this episode too because we saw a bunch of TIE interceptors.
Yeah,
and TIE bombers, and I don't think we've seen bombers before, but you don't see interceptors too often. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, according to Star Wars Explained, we haven't seen them since Return of the Jedi.
I don't even remember them being in Return of the Jedi, to be honest.
Yeah. No, they have TIE fighters and interceptors in Return of the Jedi.
That's awesome. I was a huge, probably my favorite thing in Star Wars was the original PC DOS fucking TIE fighter game. I adored that game.
Yes.
And I was always very fond of the Imperial ships. I actually went out and bought there's a new Lego TIE bomber. I bought it. I'm like, I fucking need this. If I buy this, maybe give me an interceptor.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I love TIE fighters too. I love their fucking sound. And we were talking about how like on Andor they actually made TIE fighters seem scary,
Yeah.
They're such a dime a dozen. But I actually thought they were pretty oppressive here. And I actually really liked when Din went around just like taking them out this episode too.
Yeah. Although I would definitely pick the newer ships over the older prequel ships in terms of like looking cool anyway.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, wouldn't you say that Bo-Katan ship kind of looks like Darth Maul's? Oh no, not Darth Maul's ship. It looks like the Jedi Starfighter.
Jedi Starfighter. No, it's not the Jedi Starfighter. It looks like Obi-Wan flew a ship like that sort of at one point. Actually, I believe the Transformers crossover Obi-Wan figure from like 20 years ago was the ship that looks like Bo-Katan, sort of.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember exactly what it's called though.
Yeah. Well, it has that design. I always like how like the Imperial stuff kind of comes from the Jedi stuff, you know, and like the Empire stuff comes from the Republic stuff. You know, it's cool how that merges like that. And then I guess like the Mandalorian stuff's kind of mixed in there too.
No, because see that it is a Jedi Starfighter, and it's a little more triangular in shape.
Oh,
And it looked like they had that like the wings came up, almost looks like the sword in Halo, but with the wings, the things don't move.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, was there anything else that you wanted to say about the old Mandalorian?
No, I guess that's pretty much it, and we'll see where it takes us next week.
Sweet. Okay, so we're gonna be down one Pedro Pascal, but I think we're gonna be up one Shazam, right?
Oh shit, that's this weekend. Oh man, I gotta find some time to go see that.
Yes, and I have to find some money too, so I gotta see if I can pay for it. But yeah, so Brian and I will be back next Thursday. Well, we'll record on Thursday, and the video comes out on Friday. But we'll see you guys in 1 week to talk about Shazam and the Mandalorian episode 4. See y'all.